All right, welcome everyone. I'm so pleased to see so many people here. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon. We have two awesome, wonderful poets that are going to be reading. And for those of you who are meeting us for the first time, my name is Susannah Simpson, founder and co-director of Performance Poets. And along with co-director Judy Ireland, we want to welcome you to our January 2021 reading series. Since 2014, Performance Poets of the Palm Beaches has been hosting poetry readings in Palm Beach County with featured poets followed by an open mic. Now, because of Zoom, we are able to expand our audience reach and to invite poets from other regions. However, South Florida has a very robust poetry scene, and we have been and continue to be committed to providing performance showcases for our talented local poets. We have a number of people who've had publications recently and who have some announcements. So, Stacy, can we start with you? Tell us your news.
Well, actually, I was just going to wait until next week for the reading with South Florida Poetry Journal, but Michael, Lenny, and Patricia already know, as does Emma. My book's coming out.
Congratulations.
So thank you. I do not have any information yet. We're still dealing with the contract, but it will be entitled Inventory, and it's going to be published by Finishing Line Press, the New Women's Voices series. By the time it's published, I will be 60, so I guess I'm still considered a new woman.
Excellent. Good for you.
Thank you.
Well deserved. And I believe, Dustin, you have an announcement?
Hey, yeah. The Wild and Precious Life series, the series that I curate, has an open mic this week. So I'll put that information in the chat if someone wants to join. I usually do one once a year. And then also the magazine that I edit, Limp Wrist, is open for general submissions through January 31st. And our Dolly Parton issue celebrating Dolly Parton's 75th birthday goes live on Dolly's birthday, the 19th, has poems by Dorianne Lux, Maureen Seaton, Denise Duhamel, and a lot of others. So I'll put all that info in the chat. Thanks.
Thanks, Dustin. And I just a little bit of Zoom etiquette. If you are getting up and moving around, just turn off your video. And if you are, and please be sure everybody to be muted. That will cut down on background noise. So if you're not muted, please do so. Anybody else who has an announcement, poetry announcement?
Actually, yeah. So like last month, I had the privilege and the pleasure of having heard that it was one of my poems was being nominated for the Pushcart from one of the journals. And a couple weeks ago, another journal that had published another one of my poems let me know they were nominating that poem for the Pushcart. So this will never happen again.
That's great.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Like that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Steve Gibson, did you want to share? I know you have some recent publications. Okay. Well, Steve recently had 4 poems published. Judy, is it the American Journal of Poetry?
I'd have to look. I can't remember for sure.
Anyway, 4 poems accepted. So great, great news. And a lot of these people are local poets. So that is proof of our robust poetry world down here.
Steve's there. He can give his update.
Oh, Steve, yeah, please.
Go ahead, Steve. We can't hear you, Steve.
Steve, do you want to put it in the chat?
That might work better. It's also on our Facebook page, so.
Yeah. All right. At any rate, look look for that.
I'd like
Yeah,
to
JC.
something, JC. I have 2 poems online in the journal called One Art, which is a marvelous journal. You might want to think of it for submission yourself. So I'll put that in the chat.
Wonderful.
Congratulations. Thank you. It looks like Deborah D. Nicola had an announcement. Deborah, what was yours?
I have a book coming out in March from Kelsey Press, and it's called The Impossible. And I'll put
Very nice.
the information in the chat. Thank you.
All right, congratulations. Okay. I know, anybody who doesn't have an announcement. Just kidding. Okay. All right, so let's move on. I just want to say something about the open mic before we get to it. Many of our open mic people are here. Matter of fact, most of them are. I would just ask that if you plan to read in the open mic, if you could please notify us, a day or two ahead of time. It gets to be a little bit of a scramble when we're getting emails at 10:30 on Sunday morning. And so as a result of that, I just would ask if you plan to read in the open mic, just let us know ahead of time. That would be great. Okay, there we have it. So we will get started. I don't think there's Judy.
I'm going to introduce Susannah, who's going to be our first reader today. Susannah W. Simpson's work has been published in the North American Review, Potomac, the Wisconsin Review, South Carolina Review, Poet, Nimbron International, Poet Lore, Salamander Xavier Review, among others. Her poem Lily has been anthologized in Full Moon and Foxglove by 3 Drops Press in the UK, and her book Geography of Love and Exile was published by Cervena Barva Press in 2016. And I will be putting the purchase information in the chat for that. Susannah was also a founding member of both the New Mexico Poetry Alliance and Poets for Peace Long Island chapter. She served as a staff member for Performance Poets Association Long Island. Susannah holds an MFA from Bennington and a PhD from SUNY Binghamton. She's the co-director of the Performance Poets of the Palm Beaches and its founder, as well as an associate editor for the South Florida Poetry Journal. You're so welcome. I can't wait to hear all your poems again. Thank you.
Thanks,
Susannah.
Judy. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So I'm going to start with a poem. So I was gonna ask you all to lip read and just see how you did. Okay. So first things first. I'm going to read a couple of poems from my new book, old book, and Geography of Love and Exile. I'm going to hold it up, selflessly, shamelessly promoting. And I'm going to read a poem about growing up in Afghanistan. My family and I lived in Afghanistan for about 8 years over a span of 10. And so, in the Green Door Bazaar, Kabul, Afghanistan, 1964. The smell of charcoal stoves, cooked lamb kebab, and the smell of naan slapped, baking in mud ovens rose above our heads. It mingled with yards of silk turbans, high above the street, washed and hung in grand loops, all manner of silvery gray and blue against the Kabul sky. Carcass of skinned goat, fly-studded, was strung up next to pyramids of pomegranates and blood oranges. Embedded between stacks of lush carpets, the knife sharpener made sparks, blade to wheel, and the tinker drilled staples through dainty bone china, making broken teacups usable. Now you cobble our shattered walls, green doors hanging. Who will eat your blood fruit or sweep up the shards? Thank you. Fly fishing and poetry. Down beyond the road, two men are fly fishing in the Susquehanna. I watch them from the bus window as we drive along the river. I can see their rods whip like wands, casting spells above their heads. These two are hip deep in green November water, their hats pulled low against their ears. I too wish to be immersed hip deep in green pleasure, to cast the filament above my head, to have every silky line arch, then disappear beneath the still surface, assured that eventually the words, the fish will come. Thank you. Okay, so a couple of seasonal poems. So many things come in groups of 12. Winter solstice 2020. Eggs, apostles, roses, pandemic months, donuts, juries. Longest night of the longest year, the last month of 12. Guests are requested to be dressed in black. Long before Copernicus or Galileo, even before the Black Death, and not since 1226 has Saturn shimmied up to Jupiter. Star appeared upon star, but no, gaseous planets shimmer, reflecting light back out into a dark time. Here, a table set for 12, an empty table. No one making small talk with their neighbor or pushing that last translucent globe of pearl onion around the circumference of the plate as they wait for baked Alaska and coffee. Not a single person surreptitiously dabbing gravy grease off the heirloom linen or from the front of their silk blouse. The long married couple aren't there, ignoring each other, and with every glass of wine becoming more boldly flirtatious with anyone who will listen. The galaxy of tapers is not lit, the crystal stemware is dry, the silver salad fork and dinner fork look across to the dessert fork and sigh. The hostess stands at the table and in a flourish pulls the tablecloth that hasn't been taken from the linen closet, hasn't been starched and ironed. She yanks it out from under the invisible oppression and clears space for a new year. Thank you. A Norman Rockwell Jackson Pollock Christmas. On Christmas Eve, there were always new pajamas, cookies and milk for Santa, carrots for the reindeer, and our empty stockings hung slack by the fireplace. And even as teenagers, we sat at Mother's feet while she sipped eggnog and read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" out loud. Before we went to bed, the fragrant tree was bare, but later ornaments and tinsel appeared on the tree. The milk, cookies, and even the carrots disappeared. Stockings were stuffed with walnuts, tangerines, a new toothbrush, and chocolates. Then my father lifted my limp mother, passed out on the couch, helped her upstairs, poured her into bed, where visions of sugar plums could dance in her head. Upon a visit to the countryside exhibit at Noah's Ark Museum, December 2075. It is said these winged creatures rode on the wind, perched on branches, sang their songs, and it is said that the wind carried those songs, moved those branches and leaves of trees. It is said trees carried edible globes, their fruit. It is said fruit was sweet and wet in mouths. It is said mouths gave wet, sweet kisses. It is said kisses were what people did when they said hello and when they said goodbye. It is said there wasn't time to say goodbye to all the winged creatures, goodbye to their songs, Goodbye to trees, to fruit. No time for sweet, wet kisses. Thank you. Route 80 to Belglade, 6:30 a.m. Out across the sugarcane, early morning mist rises above deep water canals cut through fields. We pass red-winged blackbirds perched in the bushes along Route 80, the birds still mostly silent, heads tucked against one wing. Cattle egret follow along the stubble left behind by cane threshers, their orange beaks plucking grubs as they go. We pass green iridescent rice paddies and frighteningly straight rows of peas. Before entering Belglade, beautiful glade, lovely glade, we pass the work camp with concertina wire, tilted top fencing, and pass searchlight poles mounted with loudspeakers. Then we pass the concrete monument to Belglade. Her soil is her fortune. See where the F has fallen from the word fortune. See the dollar stores, funeral parlors, Baptist chapels, Jehovah Witness Hall, pawn shops, the boarded up hospital. Read the billboards promising legal aid in both English or Spanish. We pass painted shotgun houses and rusting trailers, laundry hung out like pastel flags, strung out to dry, Belglade. Thank you. Confluence of three rivers. 1. My roommate calls me at 3:30 a.m. from his bedroom on the opposite side of the house. He tells me of a sudden sinkhole, took out sections of local highway and stopped traffic for miles. Then he tells me of a Tampa man who was swallowed up entirely by a sinkhole. No trace of his body was ever found. He worries about such things, sinkholes, proliferation of pythons, and dying alone. A 50-year-old bachelor, the only woman he ever fancied, moved to Texas, no forwarding address. 2. One of 3 brothers, one of 3 sons. He tells me one Sunday, his oldest brother choked him unconscious onto the kitchen floor, just to see what might happen. Never any explanation, never an apology. A zookeeper, he tends to wild creatures, bred in captivity. He tells me he gives eye drops to rhinos, makes a cup out of a banana peel, and therein hides pills for the water buffalo. He spoils my 3 dogs with baby talk. He croons to them, "Where have you been all my life?" Or, "We're just one big happy family." They wait at the door, quiver at his touch. 3. He checks on a coworker who routinely swears she'll stop, but still drinks, falls, and passes out. He finds her face down on the kitchen floor, dried blood in her hair, her 3 bewildered dogs flea-ridden and starving. He worries that she will die, that no one will find her for days, that the dogs will have to be given away. So he mops her floor, helps her to bathe, supplies cartons of Marlboros. He worries about his own sinkholes of age, loneliness, and of disappearing, never being found. I give assurances, but we both know I cannot keep my promise to outlive him. Excuse me. And I'm going to just lighten it up just a little. The prodigal returns to much excitement, or oops, we goofed. NASA announces Pluto is, after all, a planet, then confirms, yes, indeed, she has 5 moons. Closer, more familiar sister Venus is blue jealous, and Saturn, who moved away from home long ago, is furious, her cold shoulder rocky rings circling. As usual, Neptune sulks, turns up his collar, knows tourists extolling Mars' showy red silt is only a SpaceX ticket away. And when Earth heard Pluto's news, she held her breath. Mercury on a fast track to hell could care less, but Jupiter, always magnanimous and jolly, welcomed Pluto back into the family. Thank you. Donald Hall comes for tea and warns against the evils of poetry readings. He comes unannounced, unusual for a New Englander, arrives with his book, The Weather for Poetry, and always the teacher brings another, Poetry and Ambition. He tells me Jane was never tortured by the critics. Jane wrote without notice of the ahs or lack thereof. She avoided bookings, speaking engagements, and never cared for the machinations of publicity or the felicity of fans. She wrote because she had to. She wrote to peel her skin away from flesh and sinew and to sew it up again. She wrote to purge, to soothe, to excise and examine. I am the one, he said, who recoils at fatuous praise from other poets or those jockeying onto the horse nearest the finish line. I am the one who wonders, why am I listening politely to this dreck? Is it the New Hampshire or Lutheran in me? He said, I would return home aggrieved from a reading and find Jane at the wide wooden table, afternoon sun on her hair, writing. So a friend of mine, a writing friend, a poet friend of mine, and I did an exercise in November because things were bleak then. Little did we know they would get more bleak, but we did a gratitude exercise for the last half of the month and wrote gratitude poems. And so these are two of those. Gratitude for one of the five or so senses. So very grateful to sense nuance and tone, and the way Russian almost sounds like English if you could only lean in and listen harder. It allows me to discern a Great Lakes from a Bostonian accent or South African from Australian. I can determine fear or nervousness by pitch and cadence, tell the difference between one dog or the other by their bark, and know when the green parrot flock is passing over. Because of this, I can predict the exact moment the cello's bow makes a resonant downstroke, and know for certain, as I am awakened from sleep, the orchids are getting watered. So I've been a little obsessed with outer space. Please explain why outer space isn't pitch black at all. It's because shimmering mirages hover above Saharan sands and phosphorescent trails cut through midnight Mediterranean seawater. It's because fireflies illuminate dark German woods and Swiss meadows. Yellow candles burn in secret Italian grottos, and Hawaiian lava pools heave up their orange glow. It's because crematorium embers rise in the air, and Aurora hangs her northern borealis out to dry. And it's because full moons beam off the Taj Mahal's white dome, then reflect in the Ganges' deep green mirror. I have just a couple more. I watch Westerns. So I'm a big Western fan. Just ask me about The Rifleman, Wagon Train. Yeah, watch them all. And so I watch Westerns. I thought about, why am I watching Westerns? Because they remind me of my father. Not because he was a cowboy. I don't think he ever rode a horse. but he did love low-slung fast cars. He never wore stitched fancy boots, but I know he loved the smell of good leather shoes and the tang of shoe polish as he buffed. He didn't ever wear a cowboy hat, but when his tweed burp got wet with snow, the smell of wool evaporated off the radiator as it dried. I watch Westerns because mountains, redwoods, and scrub pine remind me of my father's people. Beach oysters plucked from Olympia's Puget Sound, pioneer stew cooked up on a wood stove, Seattle, Sacramento, San Jose, his mother's garden grove perfumed by the lemon trees, and her kitchen redolent, coffee's thick aroma drifting from a white enamel saucepan. And I have a couple of poems about Florida, starting with the Florida Keys in the 80s, which was quite a wild time, as you can imagine. A love story, 1981 to 1989. I remember the tarry smell of the lobster traps freshly dipped and the way the moonlight made coral rocks snow white. I remember the pale pink and blue houses on Key Colony Causeway and how both their front and back doors faced water. I recall the Keys in free fall, square groupers regularly sighted floating off the reef, cigarette boats outran the DEA, and small prop planes landed at night with regularity. Disco was queen in the Key West bars. There was no limit to the amount of glitter, eyeshadow, or lipstick, no shade of gloves, veiled hats, boa feathers that could seem out of place. People fell in and out of love with each new sailboat captain or snowbird who arrived on the shores of bathtub-warm aquamarine water. I remember Brian's in Paradise had the best key lime pie and conch fritters, and that as winter approached, drifters hitched down from Ohio and Tennessee, washed dishes in the restaurants, scrubbed barnacles for cigarette money, and slept in the mangroves. I remember everything seemed more extreme, more lawless, more exotic, and infinitely more colorful than anything on the west side of Buffalo, which is where I grew up. Yeah. And finally, my end of my Florida poems, Florida Keys Meditation. You have seen the sleek television ads beckoning an idyllic Florida Keys vacation, slim, bikinied women with perfect hip to waist ratios and unnaturally long legs, effortlessly paddleboard or cavort in a hammock, balanced martini glass in hand. Yes, it's like this somewhere in the wistful thinking of Madison Avenue. But let me introduce you to Sandra, who wears tennis skirts into her 80s, holds an eternal yard sale on the boulevard leading to the beach, and has a wild third-generation ringneck dove sit on her lap, waiting to be fed or petted. Meet the translucent moonlight head of an octopus, dark eyes curious at the morning edge of harbor, or the 2-month-old dried and severed heads of alligators, tiny mouths and teeth forced into a menacing mask, stacked by the dozens in every t-shirt shop. Meet the Sunday families from Homestead or Miramar fishing off the edge of Card Sound Road, conspicuously posted, no fishing, no parking, no stopping. See the tanned faces of always angry, old rich men in convertibles and their always young blonde companions. Hear a man explain how his Islamorada church allows dogs, parrots, and even pet monkeys to Sunday worship. And find restaurants who only insist on simple decorum. No shirt, no shoes, no service. And I have 2 last poems. This poem I'm reading is written as an email. It's a prose poem. So it's, you don't get the visual, but it's to Gaia and Universal Operations.org. Subject, New Instruction Manual. Dear Sir or Madam, I'm writing this in response to multiple missives, both in hard copy, i.e. carved in stone, and various other forms of virtual instructions received directly from your head office. I'm having great difficulty following said directions as they do not, as were previously advertised, seem to have a wide range of applications. Additionally, even when used as directed, the outcome is less than desirable. I would even say the results, please see partial list below, are worse than woefully inadequate. They are, in fact, disastrous, and one could argue tragic. Your guidance and an updated instruction manual on these most troubling matters is welcomed. Please advise yours sincerely, S.W. Simpson. Partial list in alphabetical order. Amache, Andersonville, Antietam, Auschwitz, Bataan, Buchenwald, Dachau, Gila River, Heart Mountain, Hiroshima, Killing Fields, Cambodia, Chrome Detention, My Lai, Nagasaki, Oklahoma City, Parkland, Pearl Harbor, Pulse Nightclub, 9/11, Sand Massacre, Rwanda Genocide, Sandy Hook, Stalin's Great Terror, Treblinka, Wounded Knee. And finally, thank you, Sunday's School. Who taught me the purple blue prayer of Bachelor Button and Dutch Iris, or how to receive the sacrament drop from the apex of honeysuckle? Who taught me the gentle rosary of wild blackberry and pulpit of stump? How did I learn the liturgy of birds, roseate spoonbill, monk parrot, snowy owl? Who rehearsed my catechism of clouds, cirrus, or horsetail? Someone must have taught me to worship in the chapel of woods, sacristy of fields, shown me how to baptize myself in Brook's holy waters. Who taught me the offering of lightning, call and response of thunder? Or have I known where to find succor and solace all along? Thank you very much. Thank you. And now I'm going to introduce to you our second poet, Judy Ireland. And before I do that, I want to say to you that much of what has gone on with Performance Poets is a direct result of Judy's participation in this organization. I could not have done it without her, and it wouldn't be what it is today without her. So aside from she's been a marvelous addition to this programming, she's also a wonderful poet and a good friend. And with that, I would like to read her bio. Judy Ireland's poems have appeared in Hotel America, Calyx, Saranac Review, Eclipse, Cold Mountain, Co-Review, and other journals, as well as in 2 anthologies, the Best Indie Lit New England Anthology and the Voices from the Fierce Intangible World Anthology. Her book, Cement Shoes, won the 2013 Sinclair Poetry Prize and was published in 2014 by Evening Street Press. She currently serves as executive director of the DePores Place Adult Literacy Center in West Palm Beach and as co-director for the Performance Poets of the Palm Beaches. Also, she serves as an associate editor for the South Florida Poetry Review, and she teaches, when she has time, at Palm Beach State College. Judy, please.
Thank you, Susannah, and thank you for your kind words. And it's been a real pleasure to be involved with the Performance Poets of the Palm Beaches. And the best thing is I've been able to hear all of you and your poetry. And Susannah, your reading was beautiful. And I've heard some of the poems before, but it's every time you hear them, there's more that you can get from them. So I really appreciated that. The poems I chose for today are poems about what it was like, what it's been like to grow up and live my life as part of a biological family, as a citizen in a country, and as one of a long line of women who have come before and will carry on. I've tried to choose poems from ones that I have not read at recent readings, so that those of you who've been at readings I've done recently will not have to listen over again. But if one of them is a repeat, I hope you will enjoy it even more the second time around. So thank you very much for being here and giving me this opportunity. I want to read a couple of poems from my book, Cement Shoes, and I want to do a shout out to Claudia Stanek, who was very instrumental in connecting me with Evening Street Press and getting this book to see life. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Claudia. The first poem is Growing Girls in Iowa. We grew in rows between the green tractors, the black nightshade, the pigweed, and the corn. We had a long growing season and mothers with terrible wingspans and aunts who came to visit carrying black vinyl purses full of bones, chips of limestone, and curled up willow switches. No matter how they tried, we grew up wild, big-eyed and defiant, burned by the sun. With heavy thighs and strong teeth, we thundered through the fields out of reach of mothers and aunts who could not stop the motors with their green and yellow gears from turning. Our hair hung down, crazy silks among the rows. Banshees in the corn, we coupled in the furrows. Convinced we were eternal, our coming of age took ages, and the fields grew shiny and wet with great big girls overflowing. So if you've heard me read that poem before, you may have also heard that this was the first time and the only time I've ever been censored. I was doing a radio interview in Minneapolis a couple of years after the book came out, and they had chosen a number of poems. I had chosen a number of poems to read and discuss. And the day before the program was to be recorded, they came back and said, we can't do Growing Girls in Iowa. And I said, why not? And they said, because we cannot say on public radio, the fields grew shiny and wet with great big girls overflowing. So that was my first and hopefully last encounter with censorship. We had a fun time anyway. It was a great interview and everything went fine. The second poem from the book is one I don't read very often. It's called Hand. And I have one poem for each of my grandmothers, and this is one for my fraternal grandmother. My grandmother had a hand that wouldn't open. She stuffed a clean washcloth in between her curled fingers and her palm, held it there all day. When she played piano, her knuckles played the chords. When a woman said that hugging me was like hugging a tree, I looked at my hands. Made of soft bark and pulp, I thought, fitted with silent leaves, a permanent fist, sweet wrist exposed. Or perhaps grown from the ocean, white-fingered valves, branches of coral, curved and crustacean. Lily was my grandmother's name. Thank you. The next poem is from a manuscript that I'm still shopping around, hoping to find somebody who will publish it. And it's the title poem for the collection called Hold Your Horses. Hold your horses, young lady, horses the color of tree bark, red elms, lights constant climbing through quivering branches, many hands high. I sat at my parents' table, reins in one hand, my horses straining at their bits while I silently ate, or stood in the high school hallway, backpack filled with heavy books, both hands holding leather straps attached to unseen bridles. Later, in office buildings, leaning toward laptop screens, in hospital beds hooked to intravenous tubing, I tensed my wrists, held tight to the reins of my quarter horses, stamping their feet in parking lots, blowing gusts of air explosively from their noses. Now, at this age, across the table from you, as we eat French onion soup, sip glasses of Cabernet, I'm still holding them. Left hand under the table, wrapped around twisted rawhide. Still my horses fret, gnaw at their bits, paw the ground in darkness beyond streetlights that have just flickered on. I'll go back to the 1970s, and this one's called The Ireland Family Visits Mount Rushmore in 1971. I was probably wearing my Apple Records t-shirt, tie-dyed and writ, in a giant pot on the stove, twisted into knots wrapped in rubber bands. That year, my sisters and I tie-dyed everything we could get our hands on, the three of us staring into the steam like young witches, waiting for the colors to deepen. The family station wagon powered up the Black Hills, overloaded with passengers, a cooler of food, mismatched suitcases. We arrived at dusk in unair-conditioned glory, impatient. I had just read Dick Gregory's No More Lies. History was junk, their version, their story, strategic omissions, lies. Now imagine dusk, hot South Dakota air, a long climb, the four faces dark. Loudspeakers scratch out a wordless version of the Star-Spangled Banner, then the spotlights hit the craven side of the hill. The four faces appear, staring off into the night sky, unaware. Imagine me, 14, standing silent in my tie-dyed shirt next to my sisters. I am clearly over it. There are no photos from that trip because the cameras we bought at the gas station didn't work. It was the only family vacation we ever took. My next poem was one that was one of two that were published by South Florida Poetry Journal, so I'm very grateful to Lenny and Michael for that. This is a long time coming out poem. There was an article entitled, "After Last Night, Am I a Lesbian?" in the June 1970 issue of True Story. I didn't get to read it because the magazine was hidden under my grandmother's mattress, along with several other issues. I didn't know it existed. I saw a vintage copy yesterday, listed for $12.99 on eBay, but it's too late for me now. Too late even then. Whatever I could have learned was already my secret. My science teacher's mannish French heels and tweed pencil skirts had already done their thing, unbeknownst to her, and I was down for the count. Lots of things stay hidden, though. It's no secret that the biggest lies we tell are unspoken. The space between the box spring and the mattress gets bigger and bigger. Your spine begins to arch, and pretty soon you can't sleep because of some woman or another. Some nights, I used to be afraid my pillow would rise, and my secrets would start falling out onto the floor, pages lying wide open, and eventually they did. Thank you. And I decided to go ahead and read the other of the two because it's so fitting for our situation right now. It's called America. America made me hand over my heart in 3rd grade. America filled my weekly reader with brave stories. America flew a flag in front of Black Hawk Elementary. America leaned on the light pole at the corner and waited. America walked me home. America took me for a ride. America told me to wise up. Life is not all bookmobiles and drive-in theaters. America's chiseled jaw grew a 5 o'clock shadow. America had the steering wheel in one hand, a can of beer in the other. America shook an unfiltered cigarette from a half-full pack. America asked me how old I was. America told me to shut up. America tore down my old school. America gave away free TVs. America barely remembers me or the other 3rd grade girls. America takes rifles and six-packs into the woods and lots of ammunition. America comes out of the trees, a bloody deer on the hood of its Ford F-650. America still has my heart in an old tackle box full of hooks and fishing lures. But America doesn't know it because America no longer sees me. This next poem is called Brother/Sisters. An Andy Warhol moon and sun shone on us and our escapades, each one a rerun of some light afternoon when the sun shone through the picture window with mid-century razzle-dazzle. My brother said, "I'm a fishing rod." I said, "Not me, I'm a cinnamon roll." "You're a sugar snap pea," he said. "Where's the car keys? We need a picnic." After that, a brouhaha, complete with coleslaw and a violin drug out of an old case in the basement. The gifts came daily. My brother chasing a goose around the yard that his goodness wouldn't let him kill. The way we chased away misery and danced in the middle of the kitchen floor. We knowing it would boomerang someday, hit us like a fucking greyhound at some point, a double-edged, freshly sharpened Valentine myth taking its tongues to our breastbones. St. Jude, the 4 of us were your desperate cases, and your lost causes all rolled into one. We went to college where someone, jilted by one of us, said, "You and your sisters are chainsaws." And we said, "You better run, we're barely gotten started." And then there were only 3 of us, flung across the country, still holding our piece of that nomadic myth that you can't go home again, when the truth is you can never really leave, not for good. Home boomerangs. And there you are with your credit card, pricing flights and talking to phantom family, snapping your beatnik fingers and drumming on the desk next to your keyboard as you buy that damned expensive flight and crawl home like a centipede, poised beneath the steel-toed boot of an oblivious construction worker, putting up a high-rise myth in some other neighborhood where other brothers and sisters dance on hardwood floors and pretend they have forever. Thank you. The next one is one of 2 that I'm going to read that are from a series that I did about gratitude, and they're called Grateful, and just with the number, Grateful 1, Grateful 2, Grateful 3, whatever. This one is Grateful 4. It's about my sisters. There are flowers in the garden that I do not know. No book of horticulture, no seed catalog, pages filled with rows of color photos contains anything like them. My sisters, fierce and funny, growing from each scene of wreckage, as rare as Middle Mist Red or a Juliet Rose. They make talking bouquets with their own floriography, Solomon's lilies, orange and white among the thorns, cut and crowned, they rise again beside my path, long stemmed. Growing up working class is in the Midwest is a particular way of growing up, and you have experiences and see things and hear things that are particular. And this is about one of those scenes, and it's called "Don't Let the Baby Roll Off the Couch." The mother cries into a disintegrating tissue and talks on the phone to the father, who doesn't really love her anymore. The door isn't going to open, and the other children sit on the floor eating pizza from paper plates, then cast about for something to do, pick up toys, put them down. The oldest says he knows how to say thank you, not just please. One of the girls mentioned her grandma. The baby rolls to its side. The mother wants another baby, a brother for the oldest. Half-empty cups of milk sit next to paper plates on the linoleum floor. The pile of shoes and boots by the door keeps growing as cousins come in. Someone bags up the garbage but doesn't put a new bag in the can. The father's somewhere, is or isn't coming back. The mother has only his phone number. She gave up driving around looking for him. The kids are still hungry. The baby rolls to its side. This one is called Cycles, and it's about one of several poems I've written that recognize that I'm a particular individual woman, but I'm part of a larger cycle of women who come and go, called Cycles. So much can happen to a uterus. Irritable, perforated, legislated, prolapsed. It can catch tuberculosis. Sometimes poems get stuck in the tubes leading to it and never implant in the lining. It is the original sin eater, sharing the strange food of its mother, but my uterus knows there's no such thing as sin. We are simply inanas, setting wheels in motion. Ancient Egyptians sacrificed women like me because our red hair resembled the ruddiness of ripe corn. But here I am again with my recessive genes, gnawing on pork chop bones, licking grease from my fingers. A man drinking Listerine in a phone booth once yelled at me, "Remember to take your body with you wherever you go." My uterus is with me. My heart and lungs, they whisper, comfort from inside their cathedral of bones. Therapists say it's okay to be this hungry. My uterus burrows deep so it can't feel the teeth of the plow, the top of the hoe. We're all 3/4 gristle and 1/4 bone. We suck on our fingers inside the womb, then the uterus dries up, and here we stay, until one day we forget our bodies and ride without them. Caught in the blades of the ceiling fan we go, around and around and around. Thank you. How to drag the river for your own body. Drive to Walmart, walk inside the store, say hello to the greeter, then go straight to the dressing room, remove your clothes. Turn from side to side like a rotisserie chicken. Memorize every inch. The list of spelling words down each leg, the prayer, the letters of which travel down your spine. Raise your arm to see all of your old phone numbers placed strategically in your armpits, the faces embedded where skin folds. Once you know yourself, put on your clothes, drive to any river. You are down there somewhere. Be prepared for entrapment, zero visibility, heavy current. Row to the middle of the river and lower the grappling hook. I hope you're wearing gloves. Rope sliding through hands burns. When you feel something catch, pull. You will find other things, a rusted bank box, a bent bicycle wheel, a vinyl purse that has survived submersion perfectly except for the tarnished clasp. Don't throw anything back. Eventually, you will know the river like the back of your hand. Your hook will catch. It may take years, but what you bring up will look familiar. Pledges and poems and locker combinations, all the things you've memorized arise. You recognize this body. You touch the hair on your forehead with wet fingers. What cannot be revived can't be left under. You will have to decide. Put on this body like an overcoat and wear it home, or send the boat downstream on its own, your body in it, both on fire. Thank you. This poem is about coming to Florida to live with my former partner, and it's got some Spanish words in it that I don't pronounce very well, but I'll give it my best shot, and some voices that aren't my usual ones. So I'll try to read this as best I can, but it's supposed to be a fun poem. Okay. Coming to Florida to live with you. Florida, the sea salt grinder of love, taste of brine, ridged crustacean self, nose in seaweed, sound of the shore, sails in the white distance, the sweet film of seagull songs on my teeth, the grinding of gears as cars circle the boardwalk impatiently. But love is grand. Fan-fucking-tastic, you said. Love causes one to grow old. Are you mi vieja? The old lady in the sea is grinding salt and singing our names in a song. The stinging cuts of time are from knives of sweet velvet, blades buried in sand to prevent rust. I float down onto the beach, my parachute undone, hanging on with one hand. And here I am, Julia. She's one damn stubborn female. She will find that rock someday that turns itself over, a sullen rock. It is belonging to no one, nobody, no fucking one. Cuño, culito, the sky is dropping its doors and the old lady in the sea is singing. Thank you. Just got a couple more, a few more, 3 more. This is another one of the gratitude poems. It's about my other grandmother, my maternal grandmother. And she was a lovely person who accepted us for who we were, but didn't always approve. So, grateful number 5. My grandmother's prayers flew out of her living room windows, salted the hostas and geraniums, skittered down the road clacking like cards clothespin to bicycle spokes, landed in ditches on each side of the road, a river of white roaring through culverts, steaming. My grandmother put 3 $1 bills in the offering plate every Sunday, one for each backslid grandkid. She raised her voice in praise, mumbled hallelujahs into her folded hands, sent silent prayers toward the stars, but still we kept on. My grandmother's prayers were like see-through scarves we wrapped around our bared shoulders while we put our lipstick on. Their perfume preceded us and wafted in our wake as we came home to find her living room lamp still on. Night sky, light at the horizon, as always, forgiveness clung to every blade of grass like dew. And the next to the last one is called Woman Dangling. The lay of the high wire makes it difficult to walk. The steel core balances out the twists. I position my center directly over my legs. The ankle is the pivot point. It must never allow rotation. I've never used a pole, just my arms spread wide, no flapping, just a slight sway as weight moves from back foot to front, over and over. I gave up on the recommended thin-soled slippers, do better with my bare feet, grasping the rope between big toe and second. Maria Spelterini crossed Niagara Falls on a high wire with peach baskets strapped to her feet, crossed once blindfolded, once manacled. But I'm not out for fireworks or to break records. I'm not the first woman to walk the rope, and countless times I've fallen, caught myself, and dangled. It's hard to pull a whole body up, harder to stand, but I manage. No net, no harness. I just use my hands. Thank you. And the last one is called Electricity Always Looks for the Shortest Possible Route to Earth. Electrons flow through wires in my walls and ceilings, buzzing while I sleep, always looking, seeking. One bad wire, it will all go up in smoke. I've spent my life being the path of least resistance. A great conductor, I have held the hot wire, let the excess flow through me and out through my feet, completing the circuit, but not anymore. I go outside, bare feet, half-dressed, electricity seeping into cement, sparks falling, hair that smells like burning wires, no longer tied to anything but myself, and the crows I feed who aren't frightened by a frayed woman aimlessly walking. It has taken an entire lifetime to get here. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, for your beautiful poems. Okay, so now we are moving to the open mic portion of our reading, and it looks to me as if we can manage to have everybody read 2 short poems. We have quite a few open micers, so if you have 2 shorties or 1 medium-y, that would be good. And I want to start with Michael Irvin. Michael was
Yes.
slotted
Hi.
to read for, hi Michael, you were slotted to read for us last month, and due to my clerical error, Michael didn't get a chance to do that. So we just
that was
wanted
fine.
him to know that we
thank you so
want him
much.
to read, and we hope that he will. So go ahead, Michael.
Thank you so much. Your reading was wonderful, both of yours and Judy's. I enjoyed it very much, and thank you for today. Thank you for saying that. I would like to read 2 poems. The first one is for my mother. It's called Piano at Home. My mother played the piano, played the organ in church. Most evenings cooked us dinner after getting home from work. Mother loved to go to the country club for a round of golf or bridge. Went grocery shopping once a week, filling the cupboards and the fridge. Saturdays, Mother practiced church hymns, enjoyed evening cookouts over the pit. Mother was the first American woman to win the British Skeet Open Championship. And that's that poem. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
And my second poem is called Death Always Unexpected. It's for my wife that passed away about 9 years ago from cancer, breast cancer. And it's a pastiche based on W.H. Auden's poem, Funeral Blues. It's called Death Always Unexpected. Stop all the trains, hang up the phones, slow the people from going home, silence the children and dim the light. My beloved one is mourned this night. Let the choir's hymn fill our hearts and heads with words that pass. She is dead. Give clip-on butterflies to all who enter. Have them wear black scarves as we remember. She was my pride, my friend, my love, my life, my everyday and my wondrous wife. My morning, my night, my thought, my word. How sudden her final breath I heard. The day stopped silent. I am now alone. Tomorrow stay away. don't come to my home. The darkness surrounds me, it's all I can bear. The world is no more, death has declared. Thank you for letting me read that.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Michael. Glad you were here today.
Me too,
Next
thank you.
is Chris. Yes, Chris Thurston. Chris?
Hi, yes, two short ones, a haiku. December 26th. Boston is warmer than Florida today. All lizards disappeared. And today is my daughter's birthday. She's 30 today. So I think I've read this before, and I apologize if you've heard it before, but postcard from the MFA. I pictured the two of us at the museum, like my mother and I on their free Wednesday afternoons, together, growing closer over perhaps Matisse. Today, you, only 4 years old, jazzed from your morning in that white dress with the red poppies, on tiptoe in the clamor of the gift shop. Pick one to bring home, I say. You choose. Guernica. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Next is Birdman.
Okay, enjoyed your reading, Judy and Susannah. Thank you for allowing me to read. This first poem is called Sound of the Sun. Though you haven't thought about it, the sun makes a sound. There's whistling and crackling during the early morning sunrise. Explosion comes from the sunlight. An enormous mass of gases rage in the distance. It makes an unfamiliar sound we are not aware of. Space that swallows up the sound. Listen in the mornings as the sun swells over in the east horizon. While the world is still asleep, you might hear a light noise far inside of your mind, like lightning rushing into darkness. Energy burns towards a peaceful solution, burning brilliantly and spontaneously in the middle of nowhere, but you have no way of hearing it. And my second poem is titled Nightlife. Awakening in the early morning. I look over at the clock. It's 3 a.m. I hear scratching and tapping on the window pane from a broken branch on the tree outside the window. Going back to sleep is difficult as I toss and turn, trying to get back to my dream. Slowly, I rise, getting up for a quiet read or maybe to write a few thoughts while roaming in the dark. As I turn on the light in the kitchen, a cockroach runs across the floor. Looking out the kitchen window with adoration of a mirror moon. Birds move around in their nest up high in the trees. Fallen flowers become food for the slugs and snails, while moths are frightened by the slightest of noise. Watching as rows and rows of ants transport food into their nest they built after pouring rain early in the day. Nocturnal life goes on whether we observe it or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Birdman.
Yes.
Next is Claudia Stanek. Claudia?
Hi, I'm just going to read one poem, and this is actually an older poem, but for some reason, the events of this past week just kind of called this to image. It's from my non-narrative tablet manuscript that's circulating right now. It's called Doubt. From your faith, sirens sound, crows call, and tongues scream. Bright vacuum holds your soul, clutches remorse, collects shed skin atop a black sky blanket. Spirits are disused, broken shields. This is not their purpose. The window obscures your presentiment. You cannot enter peace out of the red clay ground. Thanks.
Thanks, Claudia. Good to see you. Next is Ken Holland. Ken?
Greetings, everyone. Thank you. And Susannah and Judy, evocative poetry. Thank you. Made Sunday a lot easier. I'm going to read one poem. In all I've ever written, I've only ever had one poem where I mentioned New Year's, so how can I not? It's called Harmonics. I stumble into the new year, weary and disconcertingly sober. The night, like swaddling wool, has enfolded the last celebratory cry. Even the homeless harmonica man on 23rd Street is asleep beside his cart. The grate over which he lives judders when the subway passes below. A bellow of warm air disturbs the gristled flange of his beard. If I were properly drunk, I'd attach a myth to this moment. Some minor god with cracked fingernails and leathery feet, or perhaps a satyr gone to seed. I could lean down and put a 20 in his pocket, but really, I don't want to touch him. The streetlights cut across Chelsea like thin-boned sprinters intent on hurling themselves over the Hudson, illuminating briefly its thick creosote current. From there to outpace the day's first light as they vault the Palisades and pound through the Jersey marshes. Hours will pass before they attain the Rust Belt, then the uplifted crust of the Rockies, the jagged slide down to the Pacific, halted there by exhaustion and the sorrow of an ocean that cannot be breached. Held faintly at bay behind the barrier of the East River, the sun's ascension is near palpable. Another hour and its low glare will skitter off what dank refuse has been washed into the streets, and awaken one of the homeless from a sodden dream as he braces against the light, turning towards the last trace of the night's false illumination, to which he offers up his only gift and breathes forth a sound richly harmonic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you all.
Our next reader is Holly Jaffe. Holly? Holly, we can't see you. Is that on purpose?
There we go.
Judy, are you able to unmute her?
I've asked her to unmute, but she has to hit
Oh,
unmute.
there we go. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah, Holly, we got you.
All right. Sorry, I'm just really tired today. So just imagine Scarlett Johansson, and you got
Yes.
yeah.
Of
So
course.
last month I read a poem about a pomegranate, and this is a second poem, another version, I guess. So this pomegranate before me is certainly not the majestic pineapple with her high crown and fancy cloak. She's a voodoo fruit, avant-garde fruit, Christmas ball too heavy to hang on the tree, Cinderella's coach in a collector's garage, child's ball found in late November, an old lady's drawstring pouch, grenade in the Tel Aviv market, dragon's heart. She's 1,000 serenades, her flesh is sunburned, stricken with a fiery rash. She's not silly or easy like the banana. She's not dressed in the velvet plush of peaches or the regal purples of plums. She's not the flirty strawberry, finding her way into every dessert and romance she can. She's not begging you to ravish her, never. She's discreet, her beauty revealed to the one who seeks her out. Nor is she like the lemon who sparks the memories of 1,000 summers by merely laying your eyes upon her, too bright to ignore, an egg of sunshine that rests perfectly in your hand. She's the musty memories you find in an attic, love letters to your grandmother or your mother's wedding dress. She's the gorgeous memory you have yet to experience, a picnic lunch somewheres in the south of France. She's the memories of your maternal grandmother who was married off to a much older man. She's not the faithful grape who is sweet through and through, always a happily ever after. She is well-traveled, crossing over many continents to be here. She's a gypsy fruit, not meant to be posed or languish in a pretty blue bowl. Her beauty lies within, and I am reluctant to seek her out for fear I may fall madly in love. But I've always been attracted to the less desirable. She was complicated and was nearly unpenetrable. And when I sliced her open, my fingers suddenly sticky with her mild, sweet juices. At first glance, I saw only the cliches of a woman smitten, Valentine's, rose petals, maudlin tears. Then I saw life, ripe within her pelvic bone. I knew for sure that all women bleed. I saw honeycomb holding 1,000 or more ruby eggs, and I realized that all the beauty of the universe was tucked inside of her, and I wept as I licked each finger clean. I plucked each egg from its spongy cradle, every bit of her dissolving on my tongue. I fell so deep, and suddenly there was no turning back. I could never have enough of her.
Thank you, Holly. Gorgeous poem. And next is Michael O'Mara. Michael.
Okay, I'm unmuted. This is a new piece, kind of still under construction. Pippa's Confession. Still, morning light delights as it slathers blinds with tossed off sun. Whitens golden chairs, strong arm bones, slats the floor like Jacob's ladder, with new steps every day. But steps and stairs tire legs lost to a 3-week ague. If we're dancing to heaven, it's a slow dance now. 1, 2, 3, one more morning to eavesdrop on whispering leaves, psst, 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 but they never spilled the tea. Twittering songbirds, crows that hold grudges, as if thoughts that hail or pass like clouds that pass, like goose down on a river, late and harried with someplace to go. The squirrel scolds, the lapdog stares at a not for long empty lap. God's in his heaven and yada, 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 undone among cows and twats and plots villainous. Wishes to say something about sausage and buttered bread. One more night to pretend moon and stars, pretend make a wish, shooting meteor showers, phantom cries of gun, gun, gun. Pretend planetary hookup omens. I do remember the night, a few of us riding our bikes through God-forsaken streets, through whipped cream fog that smeared street lamps, our brief wolf pack howl, belonging, wrapped in a bare hug of it. To be of an age where it seems unseemly to talk of loneliness, childhood, sweethearts gone, convenient spouses and in, gone, midlife crisis, yes, long gone. Now it's cataracts that give streetlights halos, and only the dog will cuddle, and only for so long. And only the night breeze tries to cop a squeeze and ruffle my hair. It's 1 or 2 ages of man since that oxytocin, your fingers playing my hair overdose. And even though equations for thermal winds are known, I welcome the attention or illusion. The way a puppy welcomes a baby bottle wrapped in terry cloth and sighs in puppy talk, mama. Hardly is that word out before a landslide, before mouthfuls, facefuls, earfuls, yearfuls of figurative dirt beneath these nails. We lost a good man every mile. Lord, not this again. But there it is, was, and ever shall be, like the old Baltimore Catechism definitions of God. When my now estranged brother read my night terrors poem, seriously? You don't remember? You don't know? He demanded and glared. But this is not going to be that poem. His blood alcohol level's been 0.40 since grade school. Okay, maybe that is his point. I don't know what to do with what I do remember, never mind what I don't. The candle lit in memory burns the night, 1 knock, yes, 2, no, and this smiling silence. I'll stick with morning light and evening breeze and a puppy that smiles whenever she sees me. Yes, yes, you'll say she'd likely smile at whomever feeds her, but it'll do. 1 bark for feed me, 2 for out, 3 for pet me, damn it. Or is that, throw that damn ball.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, next is Margie Schnabel. Margie? Can you unmute? There you go.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I was saying they've been very, very beautiful readings. Let my myth unfold. Inside this painted collage, there is, in fact, a woman. She wears a marled sweater of purple, green, rose. Inside this word collage, time is COVID-19. And cerebrum is blue, where some sees in rain, but her profile and thumbs are yellow. Edgy, shimmers will be on it. Masks, nasal drippings. Well, so much for certitude and believe in what and who. Oh, let my myth unfold. A blue-black tree grows inside this woman's throat and head. And the same stark tree turns burning bush, then a branch turns staff, then snake, into serpentine path for safe passage into some other place. Behold, here at the very bottom of painting and page, flying off our fingertips, opal sky, and over there, a malachite butterfly.
Thank you, Margie. Next, Jamie, you are or are not reading? You are? You have to click the microphone. Are you reading today? Yes or no?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Ah, there you are. Okay, go for it.
I don't know if it's a good thing that you can hear me. Judy and Susannah, it was terrific to hear you. You were really terrific. Nice way to spend the afternoon. This poem is for Susannah. 7 couplets for Susannah. You write like an angel who has spent time in hell. Your words are inviting and they often compel. You curse like a sailor and you can speak in tongues. When you climb Jacob's ladder, you count all the rungs. Wicked sense of humor with a serious slant. You intuit things I want to say, but I can't. You conjure a blazing sun with gusty breezes, gently chip at the ice where desire freezes. You look through a keyhole where galaxies are born. You help me mend the parts of my soul that are torn. You're not afraid to admit the times you were wrong. You do all that you do for the sake of the song. You're measured and reckless in the stories you tell. What counts is we got up more often than we fell. Thank you,
Thank
Susannah.
you, Jamie. I'll get that check out to you. Thank you. Okay, next, Deborah Di Nicola. Deborah? Is Deborah still with us?
I don't see her square, so I think she may have dropped off.
Radio. Okay, then. Lenny, you are next.
All righty, I guess I'm on.
Yes, sir.
All right, this is called La Pared, which my understanding is that translated into English from Spanish means the wall. And it starts off with this. But now old friends are acting strange. They shake their heads. They say, I've changed. And of course, that's from Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell. I have old friends on the other side, but before the wall was built, there was a fence. There was a time when the fence was fog. Before that, a spring day, clean as the voice of Nat King Cole. We walked laughing like idiots. Our agreement was unspoken. We watched astronauts walk in space. The earth was round, no lines between north and south. But I heard you can see the Great Wall of China. It wasn't true. Slowly, it seemed, we walked away from each other. We became husbands, wives, had kids, got jobs, religion, recovered. In retrospect, it happened overnight. I was reading a newspaper when suddenly my friends almost disappeared in the fog. I turned the page and the fence appeared. Was it a joke played on me by those idiots? We built the wall without knowing it was a wall. We thought it was a tower. We thought it was the future. Some brought ladders, some brought pistols, saying, just in case. But it sounded like, remember the old days. Stone by stone, we broke the agreement. The wall is finished now, and we know what it is. It looks the same from both sides. I press my hands and cheek to it. It's cold, rough. I don't understand what my old friends are saying. I think they're screaming. It sounds like they mean it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. And last, we have Michael Jurovic. Michael?
Hi, everybody. Susannah, Judy, thank you very much. I've got two quick ones. This one's called The Latest Trade. It was one of those mornings when you first check to see the latest trade. Then what's the weather, the word of the day? Then the news, the recent incursion barely controlled. Then panic time, Mark 10. Cold moon on the rise again. And the last one is called Bang, Buzzkill. I'm sure someone's asked a long time before, but where does death come from? What direction does it march? When does it know to stop or to start? What's the traffic flow? Bang, buzzkill. No, seriously, a real buzzkill, because I had another thought to surmise before I read that email about your passing. Bang, buzzkill, but still here, writing this to you, my good friend, a man of faith and craftsmanship, a handful of which you stumble upon along this irregular mile. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you to my co-host, Judy Ireland, and thank you to all the open mic readers. Also, thank you to those of you who were here to listen. I just wanted to make the announcement that Michael Hedich and Jen Karetnik will be reading in February. That's February 7th. And in March is Cara Dad-Morrow and Steve Gibson. Steve, we'll see you then. In April, we're going to celebrate National Poetry Month by having individual people read their favorite poets. And so we'll be announcing that when we get there. And in June, we don't have May confirmed yet, but in June, Catherine Esposito Prescott and Stacy Kiner, who is somewhere here, there she is. This is like Romper Room, and I see Stacy, and I see, so Stacy and Catherine will be reading on June 21st, and More will be announced. I just wanted to close. Usually I segue between our readings and our open mic with something from a poet, but today I've decided to read a short quote by the late Congressman John Lewis, and we'll close with that. Not one of us can rest, be happy, be at peace, be at home with ourselves until we end hatred and division. And with that, I wish you all well, and we'll see you next month.
Everyone.
Bye, guys.